Ladies and gentlemen, there is a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or degrees. It comes from silence. It comes from watching, waiting, and listening. Today I want to speak to you about 6 sacred things you should keep to yourself. Not because you're ashamed, not because you're afraid, but because wisdom knows when to speak and when to hold its peace. There's something curious about money. It's quiet when it comes in, but loud when we start to speak of it. Wealth, whether we have a little or a lot, is a sensitive subject, not just because of its value, but because of what it stirs in the hearts of others. That's why it is wise, deeply wise, to be cautious about sharing how much you earn, how much you've saved, or what you've acquired. You see, when a person speaks openly about their income, even innocently, they may not realize what they awaken in others. Sometimes it's envy, sometimes it's admiration that quickly sours into resentment. And other times it opens the door for people to begin measuring your worth by what you have instead of who you are. Money has a way of distorting relationships. Friends become competitors. Family members start calculating what you owe them. Strangers draw near not because they value your soul, but because they've heard of your salary. And before long, you're surrounded not by people who love you, but by people who are drawn to your wallet. There's nothing wrong with being blessed. There's no shame in earning a good living through hard work and integrity. But the moment we start boasting about it, or even casually putting it on display, we run the risk of shifting the focus away from character and onto currency. And the truth is, wealth can attract attention, but it cannot buy respect. That comes from how you treat people, how you live, how you love. Some folks speak of their income hoping to inspire others. That may be well-intentioned, but not everyone who hears your story is rooting for you. Some may pretend to cheer while secretly keeping score. Others may feel like failures in comparison, not because you meant to harm them, but because your words brought up something painful inside them. And let's not forget how easily numbers can become changed. When we speak too often of what we have, we begin to feel pressure to maintain the image, to earn more, to spend more, to always have something impressive to say. It becomes a trap. Quiet wealth carries peace. Loud wealth demands performance. There is also a spiritual danger in making money your topic of conversation. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And the more we talk about our wealth, the more we begin to rely on it for identity and security. But money is a shifting foundation. It can be here today, gone tomorrow. And if your worth is tied to your wealth, what happens when it fades? Then there's the issue of stewardship. What we have isn't really ours, not in the truest sense. It's been entrusted to us. We are caretakers of it. And caretakers don't boast about the treasures in their hands. They protect them, use them wisely, and give without needing to announce it. The quiet use of wealth often blesses far more than the loud parade of riches ever could. When you keep your income private, you preserve something sacred, your peace. You also protect your relationships from unnecessary strain. You allow others to know you for who you are, not what you own. And you stay grounded in a world that constantly tempts us to measure ourselves by numbers in a bank account rather than the weight of our soul. There's a time to speak and a time to be still. When it comes to your next big move, whether it's a dream, a plan, or a step towards something greater, it is often best kept quiet, at least for a while, not because it isn't worth celebrating, but because something sacred happens when vision is protected in silence. You see, every plan begins in the secret place. An idea takes root in your heart. It begins to grow quietly, gently, privately. It's like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to show someone. You water it, you give it sunlight, you protect it from the elements. That seed needs time beneath the surface before it can break through the soil and show itself to the world. But too often we feel the urge to announce it, to tell others where we're going, what we're working on, what door is about to open. And while it may feel like motivation, it can actually drain the very energy you need to bring the dream to life. Speaking too soon can invite questions, doubts, and even criticism from people who were never meant to carry the vision with you. Not everyone will understand the path you're walking. Some will judge it because it doesn't fit their idea of success. Others will feel threatened by your growth, especially if it challenges their comfort. Some may even offer advice that sounds wise, but leads you off course. And a few, whether out of jealousy, fear, or confusion, may quietly hope that you fail. When you speak of your next move too early, you give people the power to shape your confidence. And not everyone deserves that kind of influence. The most powerful moves are often made in silence. They are built behind the scenes in the hours when no one is watching. They are forged in discipline, faith, and patience, not applause. There's also a spiritual strength in keeping things between you and the one who gave you the vision. When you keep your plans in the quiet place, you leave room for guidance, for correction, for clarity. You give space for growth that isn't influenced by public opinion. You learn to trust that what is meant for you doesn't need to be hyped, it just needs to be honored. And make no mistake, when the time is right, your next big move will speak for itself. You won't need to convince anyone. The fruit will be visible. The door will open. The results will show. But until then, guarding your vision is an act of wisdom, not fear. It's about knowing that what you're building is valuable, and valuable things are worth protecting. There are people who talk and there are people who do. Often the ones who are building quietly, steadily, away from the spotlight, are the ones who end up walking through doors that others only dreamed about. Because they weren't distracted by the noise, they stayed faithful to the process. And because they didn't speak too soon, their vision had room to grow strong enough to stand. There is no bond more foundational, more formative than the one we have with family. And yet it is often within those closest circles that some of life's deepest wounds are made. Family problems, whether small or shattering, can weigh heavily on the heart. They can linger for years, carried silently through holidays, birthdays, and phone calls that sound fine on the surface. But as heavy as those burdens may be, there is wisdom in choosing where and when to share them. Not everyone is meant to hear the struggles that live inside your home. The pain you carry from a broken relationship with a parent, the tension between siblings, the unspoken grief over betrayal or distance, these things are sacred. They deserve care, not casual conversation. When we speak too freely about the flaws of our family, even in frustration, we often open doors to judgment, gossip, and misunderstanding. People outside your family see only fragments. They hear your side, feel your emotion in the moment, and without knowing the full history, they begin to form opinions. And once those opinions are formed, they're not easy to erase. A moment of venting can turn into a permanent stain on someone else's name. And sometimes, when the situation changes, when healing starts to happen or time softens the pain, those you've confided in still hold on to what you told them, frozen in that broken moment. There's also a danger in letting public voices into private wounds. Not everyone offers counsel with a clean heart. Some listen just to fuel their curiosity. Others share what you told them in confidence, turning your family's pain into the topic of another table's talk. Even well-meaning people can give advice that does more harm than help, simply because they're speaking into something they don't fully understand. Family problems need space to heal, not spotlights. They need prayer, patience, and often professional guidance, not public debate. There are safe places for processing deep pain: a trusted counselor, a spiritual advisor, a lifelong friend who has proven they can carry weight without breaking trust. But even then, the details should be shared with discernment, not to shame, not to blame, but to seek healing with humility. And there's another reason to hold your tongue when it comes to family troubles: your own peace. The more we speak on a wound, the more it can fester. Words give power to pain. Repeating a grievance over and over can keep us trapped in it, replaying the hurt rather than releasing it. Sometimes silence isn't hiding, it's healing. We also have to remember that family stories are layered. The person who hurt you may be the same one who once held you when you cried. The sibling you don't speak to now may have shared your childhood laughter. Things are rarely all good or all bad. And once a story is told too freely, it's hard to take it back or ask others to see the full picture later on. Some matters are best carried quietly or spoken only in the places where grace outweighs judgment and where healing, not blame, is the goal. Kindness is one of the most powerful forces in this world. not because it is loud, but because it is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't seek reward. It doesn't ask for the spotlight. True kindness flows from a heart that gives not to be seen, but simply because it sees the need. And yet, in a world that constantly invites us to showcase every action, to document every good deed, there is something deeply sacred about doing good in secret. When you give, when you help, when you extend your hand to someone in pain or need, there's a quiet beauty in keeping it between you and the one who sees all. It's not about denying the good you've done. It's about protecting the purity of the motive behind it. Because once kindness becomes a performance, it starts to lose its essence. There is a difference between sharing to inspire and sharing to be admired. One lifts others up, the other lifts ourselves up. And sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference. The heart is subtle in its pride. It can clothe itself in humility while secretly hoping someone notices. It can give generously while keeping an eye on who's watching. But the deepest acts of kindness don't come from a place of recognition. They come from love. Quiet, selfless, unseen love. Some of the greatest acts of compassion this world has ever known were never recorded. No cameras, no headlines, just one soul helping another in the quiet corners of life. And perhaps that's the point. Maybe the most powerful kindness is the kind that leaves no trail, no credit, no applause, just peace. When we speak of our own good deeds too often, even with good intentions, we can unintentionally make others feel smaller. We can turn a conversation into comparison. We may not mean to, but sometimes our words carry weight we don't realize. And worse, they can shift the focus off the person who received the kindness and onto ourselves. Suddenly the act is no longer about lifting someone else, it's about lifting our image. There is also the danger of building a reputation off of generosity. Once you become known for your kindness, people start to expect it. They start to praise you for it. And before long, the pressure to maintain that image can overtake the quiet joy of simply giving. What began as love turns into obligation. What was once sacred becomes strategic. But when kindness is done in secret, it frees you. You're not giving for approval. You're not acting for praise. You're not helping to be seen. You're helping because you care. And in that quiet space, something holy takes place. The giver is blessed just as much as the one who receives. There's no distraction, no ego, no transaction, just love in its purest form. We were never meant to shine our own light. We were meant to reflect the light that's been given to us. When you do good in silence, it echoes louder in eternity than any public recognition ever could. There is a tenderness to the things we fear, a fragile place deep within each of us that rarely sees the light. Our fears, our weaknesses, they don't make us less human, they prove that we are human. And yet, because they are so personal, so closely tied to the inner workings of our hearts, they are not meant to be handed out freely. There is wisdom in holding them close, not from shame, but from understanding how sacred they are. Not every ear is a safe place. Not every heart that listens is kind. Some people will smile as you open up, but behind that smile might be judgment, comparison, or quiet amusement. When you speak of your deepest fears, you hand someone a piece of your soul. In the wrong hands, that piece can be used against you. It can be turned into a weapon, a whisper, a wound. People may nod in sympathy as you speak, but later twist your words into weakness. Vulnerability, when shared carelessly, can give others a false sense of superiority over you. And in a world that often values strength above sincerity, showing your inner struggles without discernment can lead to misunderstanding or even betrayal. There are those who, intentionally or not, will use what you reveal as leverage. They'll remember the moments you faltered. They'll bring up the fears you confessed in your most fragile hour when it suits their own need to feel in control. That's why discernment matters so deeply. Wisdom doesn't mean hiding forever. It means knowing the difference between trust and exposure. There's also something to be said for the inner work that happens in quiet. The fears you wrestle with, the doubts you carry, the fragile parts of you that tremble in the dark. Those moments are often where the greatest growth happens. But if we speak too soon, while the wound is still open, we interrupt that sacred process. We trade healing for attention. We trade privacy for sympathy. And sometimes we start to define ourselves by the fear we spoke of instead of the courage we're slowly building. There is strength in silence, not the silence of repression, but the silence of reflection, the kind that allows you to sit with your fear, to learn from it, to grow through it, before placing it in the hands of another. And when the time does come to speak, when the burden grows too heavy to carry alone, it should be shared with someone who has proven they can hold it with reverence, not someone who merely appears kind in the moment. Your weaknesses are not shameful. They are simply places in your soul that are still in the making. But just as you wouldn't expose a wound to the elements, you shouldn't expose your soul to people who haven't earned the right to walk that closely with you. Let your healing be sacred. Let your fears be handled with care. Let your inner battles be known only by the few who will stand beside you with compassion, not curiosity. There is a quiet kind of trust that's built when someone looks you in the eye, lowers their voice, and begins to share a part of themselves they don't show the world. It may be a confession, a fear, a memory they've carried for years, or something they've never dared speak aloud before. In that moment, they're handing you something sacred, not just information, but a piece of their heart. A secret is not just a sentence spoken in private. It is a weight, a responsibility, a silent covenant. To betray that is to break something that may never be repaired. Trust is fragile, hard to earn, easy to lose. And when someone opens up to you in confidence, they are not inviting you to pass it along, even in whispers. They are trusting that their vulnerability is safe with you, that you will carry it with the same care they wish they could carry it themselves. People don't always share their secrets because they want advice. Sometimes they simply need a place to be seen, a safe harbor where they can let down the guard they wear in front of the rest of the world. When you take that moment and turn it into a story to be told, even if you remove the names or say, don't tell anyone I said this, you've already taken something that wasn't yours to share. There's a certain temptation in knowing something others don't. Secrets can make us feel important, like we're part of something exclusive. But that sense of importance comes with a price. The moment we speak what was meant to be kept, we become unreliable. Even if the person who trusted us never finds out, something shifts in us. We begin to treat sacred things casually. And when you treat someone else's trust as entertainment or currency, you slowly lose the ability to carry anything with depth. There's also a deeper, quieter damage that occurs when secrets are betrayed. The person who confided may begin to shrink inward, learning not to speak, not to trust, not to open up again, all because someone they believed in proved that their words were not safe. We don't always see the harm. Sometimes the betrayal is done in a moment of gossip or for the sake of conversation. But for the one who trusted us, it can leave a wound that lingers for years. To keep a secret is to say, your story is safe here. Your pain is not for sale. Your truth is not mine to trade. It is a form of loyalty that asks for nothing in return, a quiet act of honor in a world that trades in oversharing. The ability to remain silent in a moment when you could speak says more about your character than any speech ever could. And it's not just about protecting others. It's about protecting who you are becoming. A person of integrity, a person whose words carry weight because they aren't scattered carelessly, a person others can trust without hesitation. In a world that often shouts, there is deep strength in quiet restraint. Some things are better guarded than given away. Your wealth, your plans, your family wounds, your kindness, your fears, and the secrets others entrust to you. Not because you're hiding, but because you're honoring what is sacred. Wisdom knows that silence is not weakness. It is protection, discernment, and grace. The way you carry what's private speaks louder than anything you post or proclaim. So choose your words with care and hold tightly to the things that were never meant for the crowd. Some truths grow best in silence.